It's a lot of fun right there. I was just watching. This morning, as we continue our Rockstar series, we've been talking about how Jesus was a rock star in his day. There were thousands and thousands of people that would follow Jesus around everywhere he went. No matter where he was going, no matter what he was doing, people followed Jesus. So we've been talking about how he was kind of a rock star of his day. But see what happens in a lot of bands' lives, and a lot of bands, they come to this place where there's somebody in the band that thinks that they're something special, right? They're like, oh yeah, everybody's coming here to see me. They don't care about you guys, so they break off and they do their own little solo act, right? We can think about David Crosby. Some of you have no idea who he is, right? David Crosby, he left Crosby, Stills, and Nash. You can think what you want to think about him when he left and his music, but he went on his own. Or people like D.D. King, who left the Ramones, right? He left, he did his own little thing, or somebody like that, right? They leave bands, they think they've got it all, but not everybody that leaves a band is bad, right? Like sometimes it's a good thing, like Michael Jackson left his band and he became pretty awesome. I mean, I think he was awesome. He sang some amazing songs. He did that thing where he had the jetpack and he could fly around. I think that was cool. And he did the moonwalk. I can't do that. But he had his own little solo act. He was really, really awesome. And then he became a recluse and a hermit, and we're not going to go into his private life because we can all think what we want to about him. But he was a solo act. And one of the things that we can learn about these people when you look at what they do in their lives and the things that are going on is you realize that it comes to this point when it all becomes about them, right? It's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me. I'm the best singer in the band. Everybody's coming to see me. Everybody's paying to see me. They don't care about you guys. Get over yourselves. They're here for me. And what we see is that these people are so into themselves. So they make this switch. They think they can do it on their own. But we do it too, right? We're pretty into ourselves, right? We're pretty into ourselves. If you don't believe me, think about this for a minute. I kind of looked into some pet peeves, right? Some of you may have this pet peeve. What about when you go to a fast food restaurant and the person in front of you has been standing in line for like 5 minutes and they get up to the counter and the cashier's like, what do you want? And they're like, listen, you're at Taco Bell. The menu hasn't changed in 15 years. It's the same stuff. Pick something. Not that I would do that to anybody in my car. Don't look at my wife. Or some of us get really agitated at the people who drive really slow in the left lane, right? Don't look at me because I do it. And if you get on my butt, I'm going to go slower. Or I'll speed up to the car in the right lane and just sit beside them the whole time. Sorry. But why do we do this? It's hard to come to grips with, right? But the real reason is like we're in love with ourselves. Like we are in love with the person that we see in the mirror every single day. And you're like, Pastor, I don't love myself. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not that into me. I don't think very much of myself at all. Well, think about this. What about it when you have a group picture? Who's the first person you look for? You, right? And ladies, if that picture of you is bad, the whole picture's jacked up, right? Like it's not any good. Oh, this picture's awful. Look at me. My hair's out of place. That was me too. Don't worry about it. But we're kind of into yourselves. We're kind of into who we are, and we kind of want our feelings above everybody else's. We kind of put ourselves higher than everyone else. And you say, come on, Pastor, get over it. This idea is kind of jacked up. I get it. It's about me, but really it's not about you. It's not about me. If we can really come on to this idea that it's not about me, I think that we'll get somewhere a little bit faster. Come on, say this with me. It's not about me. Now turn to the person beside you and say, it's not about you. See how much louder that just got? Like, it's so much about you that when I told you to tell somebody else, it got louder in here, right? Because it's not about me. But you're like, come on, Pastor, no. You just got this weird, crazy idea that it's not about me, but that doesn't come from anywhere. But really, this idea, it comes from Jesus. Like this one place in the Bible, people came up to Jesus and they're like, Jesus, dude, there's so many rules. There's so many rules. How are we supposed to follow all this stuff? How are we supposed to do it? And they're like, what is the most important commandment? Normally, Jesus would give this really long-winded parable, and he would tell you this story to try to get to the point. And this is the one place where Jesus is just like, he lays it down straight in Matthew 22. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Because Jesus knew if he could get people to love everyone else as much as we love ourselves, the world would change. He knew that. He knew if we could just get us to love other people as much as we love us, the entire world would change. So he says, love God, love others. He doesn't say, love you. It doesn't say that. But we live in this world where the world tells us that we can be the top of the food chain. The world tells us that love of ourselves, our own happiness, our own greatness is the best thing in life. And that's why it's okay to cuss out our barista when they get their order wrong. That's okay. That's why it's okay to go back to the fast food counter and throw a burger because they put pickles on it when you didn't want pickles on it, because the world tells us that we're high and we're the best thing. Because it's all about my comfort. It's all about my happiness. Nobody else matters. And listen, with all this James Harrison stuff going on, and we got to give trophies to everybody, even the losers, it kind of does another thing, right? Don't get mad at me. But we're setting kids up. We're saying, it's all about you. Even when you lose, you should be the best. Even when you lose, you got to be at the top. Even when you lose, you got to be something important. We're setting them up for failure. Well, let's think about this. Let's think about the Lord's Prayer. Come on, say it with me. How does it start? Our Father. You like how I didn't keep talking? I just let you guys do that. But it starts and it says, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done. It doesn't say me. Oh Lord, help my will to be done. Help my kingdom to grow. The entire prayer starts with a position of surrender. The entire prayer starts with a position of surrender, giving everything to God, saying, you know what, it's your will above all mine. But somehow we've changed all that. Somehow in our lives we've changed all that. And let me tell you about Joseph. He had a coat of many colors, and he had 11 brothers, and the brothers didn't like him very much because he had this really cool coat, and he was the dude, and he kind of boasted about it because he was the favorite. But it says this in verse 5, it says, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. So Joseph is basically saying, look, dude, I'm awesome. You're not very cool. I'm the best. And he's basically saying it's all about me. He's saying, look at me. It's all about me. Joseph had a big, huge dream. Joseph had a huge dream. And there's nothing wrong with dreaming big. And let me stop right here and say there's some of you that God has given a dream a long time ago. And you think it's too late. You think what God has called you to, the dream that he gave you, you think, you know what, I can't do it. It was so long ago, I can't do what God wanted me to do. And what I want you to know is if God was through with you, you'd be dead. It's never too late to do what God has called you to do. Whatever that dream is, go ahead and do it. You haven't messed it up. But so he's dreaming big, and I always love to say, you got to dream big. And if people haven't laughed at your dreams lately, you're not dreaming big enough. If you tell people your dreams, they're like, yeah, that's no big deal. But if you tell people your dreams, they're like, you're crazy. And that's the kind of dream you should have. But when we dream, what we got to realize is that it's not about us. I mean, God can do immeasurably more than we can think or imagine, but we got to understand that the dream that he gives us isn't about us. It's not about us. It's not about us doing better. And Joseph, that's what he messed up. God gave him this dream, but Joseph thought it was all about him. He messed it up. And look, it keeps going in verse 8. It says, his brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? And he did. Will you actually rule us? And he did. And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Let me tell you this morning. If you dream big, people are going to hate you. If you dream big, there are people that are going to come against you. They're going to say, man, you can never get there. There is nothing that you can do. You can't change anything. So then the Bible goes on. It says he had another dream. Like God is really, really trying to get through to him. And it says this in verse 9. It says, then he had another dream. And he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream. And this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. So God was trying to get through to him. But he still didn't realize yet that it wasn't about him. So what happened? God had to take him to school. God had to take him to school. So for 13 years he goes to school. Praise the Lord, I wasn't in college that long, but I was almost there. So he goes to school, and it says this in verse 10. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So long story short, I think that his father kept them apart, right? He's like, I know if I keep them together, they're going to kill one another, so let's just keep them apart. So he sends the other brothers out to work, and then here comes Joseph. He's like, go check on your brothers. Go check on your brothers. And the brothers are out working, and it's like, oh boy, here comes the dreamer. They hadn't forgot about it yet, right? They hadn't forgot about this dream. They were still kind of hard about the dream that he had had. It's like, here comes the dreamer. Let's kill him. All right? It's funny, right? They're going to kill their brother. Don't kill your brother. Don't think about killing your brother. Even if he has a dream that you're going to have to bow down to him, one day you'll be bigger than he is. You can take him out. So they took his robe off and they throw him in a pit, right? They throw him in this pit, and the thing is, a lot of times we get in this pit and we think that God's trying to punish us. We get thrown into the pit and we think that God's trying to punish us, that we've done something wrong and God's trying to punish us. But I think a lot of the times God puts us in a pit because he's trying to protect us. He puts us in a pit because he's trying to protect us. But the problem is we don't see the way that God sees. God sees situations in a totally different way than we do. And I think if we could see the way that God sees, there would be times that we were in the pit and we would be praising God. Because listen, Joseph being in the pit was what protected him. Him being in the pit is what protected him from death. But we can't see that. I'm sure all of us could agree that God has been faithful in the pits of our lives. When we look back on our lives and the places that we were at our lowest, and we felt like there was nothing else that we could do, there was no way that we were going to get out, we could look back and we could say, man, God was faithful to me. But we can't see it when we're in the pit. And I think that Joseph discovered in the pit that it wasn't about him. I think he realized in the pit that it wasn't about him. He had this huge dream and he realizes it's not about me. Joseph realizes that something we all need to realize, that we're too small. We're too small to dedicate our lives to ourselves. We're too small. Our lives are nowhere near large enough to dedicate our lives to. We're just a small person. Our lives are a mist or a vapor. We're here today, we're gone tomorrow. But he says, love God and love others. It's not about me. Joseph decided in the pit, he said, you know what, I'm just going to serve people the rest of my life. I'm going to serve people the rest of my life. And he received success like the world had never seen. Because he decided he was going to serve people. See, the way we turn our dreams into our destiny is to realize it's not about me. See, if you want to turn your dreams into your destiny, you have to realize that it's not about me. So when Joseph gets to Potiphar's house in Genesis 39, he gets promoted, right? And Potiphar's wife, he comes against Joseph. She's like, hey, what you doing? She just turned into Joey. I don't know how that happened. That's how I hear it in my head. So he says, you know what? It would be a sin against God. And furthermore, it would be a sin against my master if I were to sleep with you. It would be a sin. I can't do that. And guys, let me tell you this. If you're trying to take advantage of a woman, it's because you're not laying your own will down. If you're trying to take advantage of a woman, it's because you're not laying your own will down, because it's not about you. So you make her compromise because it is all about you. And ladies, if you're with that guy, you need to run. Because getting married to him is not going to change anything. In fact, it'll probably make it worse. That's free this morning. So Joseph refused to take advantage because he says, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about my desires. It's not about what I want. So, she does what she thinks is best, and she lies. She says, he tried to take advantage of me. He tried to take advantage of me. He touched me. He did all this stuff. So what do? They throw him in prison. Throw him in prison, and he gets there, and he pouts the entire time, right? No. He doesn't get to prison and pout. He doesn't get there and he says, oh, woe is me. The whole world's coming against me. They're trying to take advantage of me. This is the worst thing that ever happened. I didn't do anything wrong, and everything's coming against me. He doesn't do that. He never pouted. He didn't say, I shouldn't be here. Somebody owes me something big because I wasn't supposed to be here. He doesn't do that. He doesn't say that. He gets there and he serves. He doesn't say someone owes me something. And when he gets out of the pit, he says the past won't hold him back from his potential. Think about that. He says, my past isn't going to hold me back from my potential. And so many of us let the pits in our lives, our past, hold us back from the potential that God has for us. We say, I can't get to where God wants me to do because of what I've done before. But we can't do that. It doesn't hold him back. Some people won't ever realize what God has for them because they let the pit get in the way. But what did Joseph do in the prison? He served. He didn't pout. He never says, I've been wronged. I never did it. But what you need to know is that, here's what you really need to know is victims will never walk in victory. Victims will never walk in victory. If you always play the victim, you're never going to walk in victory. He said, I'm going to walk away from that. There have been bad things that have happened, he said, but I'm going to walk away from it for good. And that's what we need to do. We got to walk away from all the bad stuff that happened to us and say, I am going to walk in the victory of the Lord. So Joseph gets into prison and he gets promoted, and God is so awesome that he can do that, right? Even while we're in the pit, even while we're in prison, he can raise us up. So Joseph, he serves in prison. And if he had never served in prison, he would have never been able to get to the palace. Had he not served in prison, he would have never gotten to the palace. You got to catch on to that. So what did he do when he got into a position of power? He finally gets this position of power, and what does he do? He serves. He just served some more. He served the people that had enslaved him. Think about that. The same people that had thrown him into jail, it was the exact same people that had put him there and said, you're going to prison even though he didn't do anything. When he gets out of prison, he still serves them anyway. Why? Because it wasn't about him. It wasn't about him. The people that opposed him, he served them because it wasn't about him. And because he did this, because he served, because he did what God had called him to do, because he laid down his life and he said, it's not about me, he saved 2 nations from starvation. Because he realized it's not about me. Because he embraced this idea, it's not about me. Years ago, in the church, we drew a line, and we decided that we're going to yell and scream at people that weren't as good as us. But the idea is, what if we were to step across that line? What if we were to step across that line of the people that come in the face of God, and we were to serve them? What if we were to step across that line of the people that yell and scream and do everything that we know is wrong? What if we were to step across the line instead of telling them that they're damned to hell and they're going to be there forever? If we stepped across the line and we served them anyway, what would happen? Because the reality is it's hard to hate someone when you're serving them. It's really hard to hate someone when you're serving them. But the reality truly is that saved people serve people. Saved people serve people. You can't miss that. And the Bible says that the nation of Egypt had basically 7 years of feast when he got in. And then after that, 7 years of famine. But Joseph served so well during the first 7, they had enough food to eat the second set of 7 years. So now the famine in Israel was so bad that Joseph sent his sons down to Egypt to buy grain, right? It's like, go buy some grain. Go buy some grain. And who do you think that person was they had to bow down to? Right? Who do they have to bow down to? Who do they have to bow down to? Joseph. Now Joseph was the governor of the land. They bowed down to him. Did Joseph's dreams come true? Absolutely. Absolutely they did. But it came true when he died to himself and he realized, it's not about me. It's not about me. But Pastor, how does this apply to me? How does this apply to me? How does this whole "it's not about me" apply to me? And let me give you 4 areas of your life, that will drastically improve if you embrace this idea. The first area of your life that will improve is your marriage, right? Everyone has marriage problems. Raise your hand if you've had marriage problems. Everyone else that's married and doesn't have their hand up is a liar. I'm just saying. Some of you done got in an argument on the way here. You were in the car and you're yelling at each other and you walk in the front door and you're, "How you doing?" "Oh, I'm great." Mm-hmm. Don't look at me. I might not have done that. So you know what I realize is that most people don't really have marriage problems. What they have is single problems that they brought into their marriage. They have single problems that they brought into their marriage. We often go into our marriage thinking the wrong thoughts. Excuse me again. Guys, let me ask you this question. Let's be honest. When a guy's getting ready to get married, what is he most excited about? Sex. Right? Right? I'm glad you're here because nobody else was going to answer me. Listen, some guys will be like, "Baby, that's not me. That's not me. That's not what I was concerned about." Liar. See, I once had a teenager tell me, he said, when I was a youth pastor, he said, "Pastor, purity is so much easier for you because you're married and you can have sex anytime you want." Right. That's all the married men laughing. I said, "Dude, you can have sex anytime she wants." Go ahead and write that down, young men. I'm telling you, just write it down. Don't get your head twisted. That's funny, but let's get serious for a minute. Guys, when we are getting married, and that's what we're thinking about, what we're really saying is it's all about me. What we're really saying is it's all about me. It's all about my pleasure. It's all about what I want. We're selfish. We want to fulfill our own desires. And then when she doesn't live up to what we think we want, then we think she's a horrible person. When we don't think she does what we want her to do, then all of a sudden it's her problem. It's her problem. It's not my problem. She's not fulfilling my desires. And let me go out and step out on a limb here and say this. Do you want to know something? Sex isn't a need. It got so quiet in here. I have never seen a person die from lack of sex. I mean, if it's a need, then you would die from it, right? Like if you had to have it, you would die, but it's not a need. You'd go to the funeral, and at the funeral, he'd be like, his wife was there, and like, "Dude, what happened?" "Well, his wife just kept turning him down, and finally he died." He just killed over. Well, ladies, you're guilty too, though, right? Don't get too hard on him. The problem is, most women have watched too many Disney movies. We've watched too many Disney movies, right? And you see the Prince Charming, and you think that all of a sudden that when you get married that it's all going to be great. But do you know why all those Disney movies end at the wedding? Because years later they'd be in pieces, right? They'd be arguing, they'd be fighting. But women get to see this and they're thinking, "Oh, man, he's always going to be there to cuddle me. He's always going to be there to listen to everything that's going on. he's just going to be so perfect. He's always going to make me feel like the only woman in the room. And you know why? Because it's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about my desires, how I feel. And that's not going very well for you because no man can ever fulfill all that but one, and his name is Jesus. Listen, if you listen to too much marriage counseling, what you hear is this. You'll hear, well, he doesn't do this, and he doesn't do that. And then you'll hear, well, she doesn't do this, and she doesn't do that. You know why? Because it's all about me. Because it's all about me. I've never had anyone come in and hear him say something like, you know what? It's driving me crazy. He keeps doing everything for me. Every time I turn around, there's nothing I can do because he's always doing everything that I need before I can even think of it. It bugs me. Now, you could be here this morning and have legit problems in your marriage. And let's say that 90% of the problem in your marriage is your spouse. Let's just go ahead and say that 90% of the problem in your marriage is your spouse, which is probably way overkill. But you walk out of here this morning and you say, I can't change the 90%, but I will own the 10% that's my problem. Let's say you walked out of here this morning and said, I'm going to own the 10% that's my problem and just try to live your life serving one another. Just try to live your life serving one another. Listen, I'm talking to myself. If you live your life in your marriage serving one another, you'll never grow apart. You will never grow apart. Don't get in the car later and say, hey, that 90% is yours. Don't do that. Because it's not about you. And let me say this, if you're dating a selfish person right now, they're only going to be more selfish later. It's not like they're going to get married, you're going to get married, and it's all going to become less selfish. It's not going to happen that way. If you're dating a selfish person, it's just going to get much worse. So the first area of your life that's going to get better is your marriage, and the second area is your finances, right? All of us have made some stupid, foolish, irrational, dumb financial decisions, right? I have. We've all bought some stuff that like we had to have it. Like I've got to have it right now. If I don't have it, my life is going to end. I just got to get it. Everybody's got to have it. I mean, God wants me to be happy, and then we get it and we never use it. Like once a year and it's laying in your house, and a few years later you go to your closet and it's in the bottom of the closet and you're like, oh yeah, I had to have this. But we've all done it. No one has ever made a bad financial decision trying to be generous. Right? You've never been like, oh, I'm just going to give some more money away. And then you're like, oh, what did I do? Nobody's ever done that. Because we make bad financial decisions when we're trying to be greedy. That's when we make bad financial decisions, when we turn it into all about me. When it's all about my happiness, the more things I can have, the more things that I need. That's when we make bad financial decisions. The truth of the matter is that we're all crazy, selfish people. Amen? And let's go home. No, we're born that way. You don't believe me? If you've had kids, do you ever have to teach them to be selfish? No. Listen, at my house, there's like World War III 5 or 6 times a day. Not once a day, like 5 or 6 times a day. They fight and they want to kill each other. And I swear that my house is going to cave in because they're fighting over a toy that one of them had. The other one thought it was theirs, but they were playing with it 15 minutes ago, but I was still playing with it. It's because we don't have to teach people to be selfish. It's just how we're born. We're born crazy, selfish people. We're all natural born takers. But when we ask Jesus into our lives, he changes us from the inside out. When we ask Jesus into our lives, he changes us from the inside out. When he is changing us, we have to do what Paul tells us in 1 Timothy. And we have to train ourselves to be godly. So when God is changing us, we have to do what Paul tells us. We got to train ourselves to be godly. We don't just become godly. We got to train ourselves to be godly. And as God is changing us from the inside out, we have to train ourselves to be more generous. We got to train ourselves because we're naturally greedy. We got to train ourselves to be more generous because generosity does not come naturally. Jesus said the most important thing is to love God and to love others. What if in our financial life we put God first, others second, and ourselves last? We may not have that really nice car, but our kids might not have the kind of student loans that I do. But what if we put him first? And by the way, that's the way he ordained it, but what if we put him first? That's why he puts the tithe first. That's the main reason why we struggle, is because it's all about us. We turn it into all about us. So God will take place in your marriage, your finances, and thirdly, your career. You want to make it to the top in your career? If you want to make it to the top, what do? You just start serving other people. If you want to make it to the top, you start serving other people. I believe that Christians should be the most hardworking, most ethical person in the workplace. Really, I do. I think Christians should be the most hardworking, most ethical people in the workplace. That way, if there's bosses that aren't Christians, they're like, hey man, I don't believe what they do, but you need to hire you a Christian because they don't steal, they're always on time, they always stay late, they work harder than anybody I've ever met, and I never have to worry about them. That's the kind of person we should be in the workplace. If they tell you they're going to do something, man, they're going to do it. If they tell you they won't be there, they won't be there. If they tell you they can't, they can't. If they tell you they will, they will. But that's how we need to be. Pastor, you don't get it. You don't know my boss. You don't know my boss. You don't know what I have to deal with, and that's true. I don't. But think about Joseph. If he didn't do what was asked of him, he got beat. He got whipped. He got flogged. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, you still get a paycheck. Your boss still pays you. You still get a paycheck. It's not like you lose that. But he would get beaten. You know, sometimes I think we make a lot out of something. We make a lot of things worse than they really are. We blow things totally out of proportion. In my experience, Christians in the workplace, we've kind of ruined it. We've kind of ruined it. Like a Christian boss will hire a Christian employee, and the Christian employee won't do a good job. So the boss comes and tells them, you got to do a better job. And the employee's like, you can't say that to me. I'm a Christian. You're a Christian. You can't do that to me. Well, yeah, I can. You got to get it straight. We got to get you in line. You got to do the right thing. If you're a Christian in business, you won't have to display it. You shouldn't have to tell people. People should know by the way you live and the way you work and the things that you do, by the quality of your work. So what if we were to just go to work and decide it wasn't about me? What if I were to just go to work and realize, hey, it's not about me, and you were just going to go and serve everyone? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, if I go serve everybody and I just do stuff that people don't ask, people are going to walk all over me. People are just going to walk all over me. That's just how it is. I'll never get to the top. I can't get there. People are going to run over me. No, you'll get to the top of the food chain because quickly people will realize that there's something different about you because the business world isn't used to that. The business world isn't used to somebody that comes and they just serve with their entire life, their entire day. They do stuff that they're not asked to. They just do things. The business world is not used to that. The business world is used to somebody that shows up. They only do what they're asked, and that's it. That's how we've been for so long. What if you set up an appointment with your boss and said, hey, how can I make your life easier? What do I need to do to make your life easier? Tell me how I can do my job in such a way that it makes your life easier. And then get this, you actually did it. What do you think would happen? What do you think would happen? You would get moved up so quickly. What if you quit saying, hey, I can finally start doing that when I get that promotion. Hey, just as soon as I get promoted, as soon as I get to doing just a little bit more, as soon as you move me up, I'll do this. Or as soon as I get moved up, I can finally do this, but I can't do it right now in the position that I'm in. What if we quit saying that? What if we quit saying, I'll do it when I finally start making the more money, and when I said, I'm just going to do it now? I'm just going to give my best to God right now? What if I said, I'm going to do everything as unto the Lord, and I did my job to the fullest every single day? What kind of difference do you think that would make? I'm just telling you, success comes from people that surrender to God and they serve other people. You say, Pastor, you don't know about the real world. You have this cushy job. You work 2 hours a week. The real world doesn't work that way. Let me tell you, I hear more about the real world than probably most of you could ever imagine. I hear so many stories that are so messed up that some of you would have nightmares. I know what the real world's like. I see it every single day. I've seen a whole lot of it. And if it doesn't work in the pagan world that you live in, you say, you know what, I can't do that. I can't do it. We live in this pagan world, Pastor. I can't live that way. It won't work. How come Joseph could do it in the most pagan world ever? He did it. He served everybody. It's the most pagan world that you could ever imagine. This isn't a pagan world compared to the world that he lived in. He did it, and it worked amazingly. And students, let me just tell you this. I'm going to come back this way. Students, let me tell you this. If you don't give it your all in the classroom, please don't go around telling everybody you're a Christian. Don't. If you're not giving it your all, if you're not doing your best in everything that you do, don't tell people you're a Christian, because they'll be like, man, that guy's just lazy. Because the only thing that you are a steward to right now, the only thing, if you're a student, that you are a steward to right now are your grades and your room. That's about it. The only thing that you have to steward are your grades and your room. Give it your best while you're there. And I'm not telling you that you have to get an A. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying give it your best. Do all that you can do. Be the best you that you can. Don't just lay around and wait for somebody to do it for you and then get a bad grade and expect your parents to call in and complain to the teacher. Give it your best. Don't be too lazy to do the work. So the first thing is your marriage, then your finances, then your career, and the last thing is your connection with God. Your connection with God. See, you may not be interested in a connection with God. I realize that not everyone here this morning is interested in a connection with God. But what I can tell you is if you get interested in the first three things, I guarantee you that you will become interested in the fourth one. If you start doing the first three things, even if right now you're not interested in a connection with God, you say you don't want anything to do with that, but if you start doing those first three things, I guarantee you that you will start having a desire to have a deeper and greater connection with God. I believe that there's foundational legs to faith. There's foundational legs to faith. Like this stool is standing on 4 legs, right? I think that's right. I mean, I'm from Kentucky, but that's 4. So there's 4 legs, I think. And the first one is reading your Bible. If you don't have one, there's some Bibles over there. Just grab one. Take it home with you. They're free. We want you to have one. Just take it. But I think that reading your Bible will help you grow in your faith, right? And I think another foundation is regular church attendance. And you say, well, I don't need the church. I don't need the church. Nobody needs the church. Then why did Jesus die for it? I don't need the church. Well, obviously somebody did, or Jesus wouldn't have gave his life for it. I think that's another foundational leg. And furthermore, if he didn't, he died for it, and then he says he's coming back for it, and he's the head of it. I don't know if it's all that relation to Jesus. I think it's pretty important. I think the third leg is giving. If he isn't Lord of all, he isn't Lord at all. And listen, here he goes again, right? He's talking about my money. Just a few weeks ago, he's talking about my money. Is he ever going to shut up? No. And what I'm telling you is if you don't want to give here, if you think I'm so concerned with your money coming here, give it to some other church. That's how much I don't care about it. Because I think God will take care of us. I believe that God always have and always will take care of his church. So if you think that all I care about is your money, give it to some other church. Because what I really care about is you getting the blessings from doing what God has called you to do. That's what I care about, you being blessed in that way. And the fourth leg, I think, is serving others. 4 legs won't fall, right? But like if I were to take this leg off, the stool's going to fall. And the stool would fall. It falls down. I believe we're called to serve other people. And it's not about trying to recruit volunteers. I'm not trying to call you out, but I think you should serve, and I think you should do whatever you can in any capacity that you can. That's not what I'm talking about. But here's what I know. If we wear ourselves out serving other people, we will grow crazy close to God. The more you serve other people, the closer you will get to God. Matthew 20:25 and following says, Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Greatness happens through serving. Greatness happens through serving. Jesus served people. Jesus served people. He came to this world to serve people. Success in life comes from surrender to God and serving other people. If you want to be successful in life, you got to lay your life down to God and start serving other people. Has there ever been a time where you said, you know what, I'm just going to serve in my marriage? No matter what's going on, I'm just going to serve my wife. I'm just going to serve my husband, or I'm just going to serve in my job. Is there any area in your life where you need to lay at the feet of Jesus and start serving other people? What area in your life, if you said, you know what, it's about me, I'm going to hold on to it. What area of your life do you need to lay your life down and say, you know what, I'm going to serve other people? Or maybe you've never laid it down at all. Maybe you've never given your life to Jesus. You've never laid your life down in the first place. You've been living your life on your own. You've never given your life to Jesus. And you don't have any clue what I'm even talking about. The Bible tells us if we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord and we believe in our hearts that we will be saved. Listen, what you need to know is without Jesus, we are set up for an eternity of torment. The Bible says, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, and we all need God. Stand with me this morning. We all need God in our lives. There's nothing that we can do that can bring us closer to Him except for give our lives to Him. And maybe you're here this morning and you've never heard that before. Maybe you're with us this morning and you didn't know that you were separated from Him and there was nothing that you could do but lay it all down to get closer to Him. Have you ever had that place in your life where you said, you know what? All of you, Jesus, none of me. Listen, without Him, we're never going to make it. Without Him, we can do nothing. But with Him, we can do all things. Let's bow our heads this morning. If you're with us this morning and you have never given your life to Jesus, and you realize for the first time that you need to lay your life down, that you realize for the first time that you are separated from God and there is nothing you can do but give Him your all. You say, you know what, I want to give my life to Jesus this morning. I want to turn it all over to Him. I want to live for eternity with Jesus. If that's you this morning, I'm just going to ask you with every head bowed just to raise your hand. If you're here this morning and you laid your life down and you gave Jesus your life a long time ago, but you've been serving him, you've been serving yourself. You've been saying, you know, it is about me. But this morning you're saying, you know what? I realize it's not about me anymore. It's about serving other people. If you realize this morning that you need to start serving in some area of your life, that you need to lay it down and say, you know what? It's not about me. Would you just raise your hand with me this morning? Here in a moment, I'm going to the band's going to play a song, and Pastor David's going to come up here with me, and I'm going to ask you guys, if you've raised your hand for anything